And thank you to the Cathedral and to everyone here, Alice and Tom and everyone on the committee for having the Greater Cincinnati Good Food Coalition come down to the Community Issues Forum here in November. So thank you all for coming out. My name is Brennan Grayson. As Bill said, my organization I'm with is called the Cincinnati Interfaith Worker Center. We are part of an emerging coalition called the Greater Cincinnati Good Food Coalition. In the city of Cincinnati, there's a lot of food that gets eaten. I see all of you, almost all of you, have something in front of you: potato chips, turkey, sandwiches, fruit cups. Someone has a little bit of coffee. Food touches all of our lives, and for many of us, it's very important where our food comes from, who prepares it, what goes into it. For many of us, it's very important what kind of chemicals are applied to the food, what kind of nutrients are in the food. It also matters to many of us who prepares the food, how well they're paid. And if you're making food at home, no problem. You can know pretty well what's on the label. You know who's preparing it, that's you. If you've got a little bit of extra money, you can say, okay, well, I'm going to buy from a local source maybe, or I'm going to buy from Klosterman's. Why? Because if you're in Cincinnati, you know that that's a local bakery. And if you turn the Klosterman's bag over, I should have brought one with me, you can look and there's a little shield on the back of the Klosterman's, real small. It says BCT, and that's the union label, because Klosterman's is a union company. And so you can have a certain amount of trust that they treat their workers with respect and dignity. So I always go to the store and I buy that Klosterman's bread every time. And you know, there's some Klosterman's that doesn't have the union label, and I even steer away from those because for whatever reason, I don't know, I haven't been down to the bakery. Some of it has the union label and some of it doesn't. So for me and for my values, I believe in workers' rights. I believe everyone has the right, should be encouraged to join a union. And so knowing that there's a local bakery that has long-standing good labor relations, that to me is the first choice. When we go to a restaurant, we don't know who's cooking the food. And also when we send our children to school every day, we also don't know where that food comes from. A lot of folks, now it's very popular to go to a restaurant that serves local food, farm to table they call it. And this is a very important initiative where people are in a sense voting with their food dollars. I think there was even a restaurant called Local 282, which I guess was supposed to emphasize that they served all local food or as much local food as possible. Well, these initiatives are great, and I think that they help folks feel that they're connected to the food that they're buying because they know it's nutritious, they know it's organic, hopefully it comes from a local source, hopefully the animals have been treated well. All these values are becoming somewhat commonplace for folks who have the time and the money to spend good money on good food. So the Greater Cincinnati Good Food Coalition is working on a program to help bring some of these good food values to institutional food purchasing. So, in the city of Cincinnati, all the restaurants combined, they buy less food than one institution in town. Anybody guess what that institution might be? Schools. The schools, Cincinnati Public Schools. They are the largest food purchaser in the region. It's about $18 million a year that Cincinnati Public Schools spends on food. And my children go there, and my daughter has a food allergy, so we pack her lunch every day, but my son Jack goes and he eats the lunch every day. And we care a great deal, our family cares a great deal about what is being served. But we want it to be nutritious, we want it to be healthy and so forth. But because we come from a family that values labor and values workers' rights, we have an interest in making sure or trying to prevent companies that are exploiting workers that have a bad labor record from profiting off of the food that's served at the school tables every day at CPS. So for years, no one looked behind the curtain, right? All folks cared about was, well, does it fit within the budget? If it fits within the budget, then it's okay with us. Folks weren't really concerned about how it tasted, where it came from, impact on the local economies. Well, something changed in Los Angeles in around 2010, a group of women got together and they said, wait, how can we change the local economy and make it more one responsive to the values that we have? How can we have a community that where the schools are reinforcing the values we have at home? How can we make sure that our local tax dollars are spent wherever possible on companies that are in the region and feeding the local economy when they, through our investment? So what happened in Los Angeles is as a group of women got together and they said, well, what if we came to the school board with a program? And the basic idea was, look, we want the school board to peel back the curtain and to show us, the community, where the food's coming from. Because right now we don't know. Maybe it's coming from Tyson, maybe it's coming from a local farm. Maybe it's coming from a sustainable producer. Maybe it's coming from one that is polluting and harming the environment. What they asked in LA was, show us the food supply chain, and the community will help the school to buy food that is prepared locally wherever possible, and we'll help the school to identify alternative sources. So food producers that are in the market, that are already selling to institutions, but that have a good reputation, who have made a corporate commitment to sustainable farming practices, food practices, to be respectful to the animals and have humane practices in that regard, and of course treat their workers well, and ideally more nutritious food. So the idea was to come up with a program that set benchmarks in the 5 value areas of what's called the Good Food Purchasing Program. So a lot of what's happened in Los Angeles is very exciting. So the school board said, okay, we will open up the school purchasing process and allow the community and a third party to come in and to evaluate where the food's coming from, and we'll work with the community to identify alternatives that are local, identify alternative producers that have a good labor record, a good record on sustainability, and humane treatment of animals. So what's happened in LA is they've been able to move about 20% of the food purchasing in Los Angeles to producers that are in Los Angeles County. They've also been able to remove companies that are considered exploitative, like Tyson Chicken, from the supply chain, and they've been able to enhance the opportunities that workers in the region have to have a voice on the job. So this whole change that took place in Los Angeles in 2012 now has been in place long enough that the results are quite strong. It's not showing a considerable increase in costs for the food production. What's happening is the community is being able to influence and setting a standard with policy the way that the school buys food. Previously, the school didn't engage the community and ask the community what we thought the value should be when the school decides which food to buy from. There was really only one audience, and that was the distributors. The distributors call the shots. And I have to tell you that if you don't know this already, that some of those shots were actually, I think, quite harmful. Just give you one example. If you go to the kitchens now in Cincinnati Public Schools, does anybody know what you'll find there? You won't really find
ways to cook.
You won't really find ways to cook, because many of our institutional kitchens have been turned into warming ovens. So many of the cooks who used to work in the kitchens no longer are preparing food in the kitchen the way that they did when we were young. And this is a recent change. I mean, this is 10 years that this has been happening, maybe less in some schools. Why? Because the distributors went into those schools and said, hey, you want us to give you a cheaper product? No problem. We just need you to change the way that you're preparing your food. We need you to get rid of the ovens. We need you to get rid of the stoves. Now, when I go into my son's school at Parker Woods Montessori, you can't find a stove. They don't boil water there. There's some warming ovens. And I think it's time that we change all that. So if we want to create a food system that's different, one that reinforces the values that we have, we have to create a policy at the institutional level that will encourage change. And so that's what the Greater Cincinnati Good Food Coalition is doing, is it's promoting what's called the Good Food Purchasing Policy for the city of Cincinnati. So what it does is it creates a set of standards that the food purchasers will be graded on, and it encourages Cincinnati Public Schools to buy each year spend more of its $18 million on food that comes from sources that are local, sustainable, humane, and that encourage, value, and appreciate their workforce. So some of the details I hope that we can talk about in some small group discussion today. But this is a policy that is really taking root in places, and not just in California. So Los Angeles was the first school district to do it, then Oakland and San Francisco, and now Chicago last year, and then recently this year, all of Cook County has decided that they're going to use community values and socially responsible purchasing for all of its public institutions. So that means the jails in Cook County, that means all the schools in Cook County, that means all the recreation commissions in Cook County. They are all going to begin to use a community-based process for buying food. And so what does that mean? That means that local small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, now in Chicago and in Cook County, they have a better shot at getting contracts. Why? Because the purchasers at the institutional level are being told to prioritize and to look for local vendors. They're being told to be on, they are instructed to be on the lookout for companies that exploit their workforce, that commit wage theft, that do not have safe conditions on the job. They're being told to be on the lookout for those companies and remove them from the supply chain, right? Now, if they put in a program for how they're going to improve, they can get back in the supply chain. But it's really changing the message. It's saying, look, it's no longer just about the bottom line. We're going to use our considerable influence, our institutional food budget, to change the way that we buy our food, to give the socially responsible companies an opportunity to sell to our larger institutions. So that is, in a nutshell, the Good Food Purchasing Program. And I can talk a little bit, if you'd like to hear about the local coalition and kind of where we are with advancing this program here in Cincinnati. Is that something people would like to hear more about?
Nancy? Can you give that